By now, our major keynoters include Professor Richard Wolff and Dr. Cornel West. LA Mayor Karen Bass will be there as well. But listen to some of these plenaries: fighting for black students and educational equity, resilience under Trumpism, how to stay sane under fascism, the battle for democracy, what's at stake in 2026, healthcare under attack, fighting Trump's cuts, and building patient power. From seed to system, building a local food economy in South LA, theater as a force for change, voices from Palestine. The Constitution is not self-reinforcing. Racism on the left, building communities of care, federal changes and their impact on healthcare in LA County, Committee for the First Amendment, and more. The Left Coast Forum is brought to you by the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Partnership for Growth LA, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, LA Care Health Plan, United Teachers Los Angeles, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and more. Space is limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. That's KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters, your presence matters. We'll see you there.
Crash of the world. Did I hear a thunder? Did I hear you break? I can't quite remember just what guided me this way. Unshaken, amidst the crash of the world.
This is the Black Pack. I'm your host, Adrianne Shropshire, and we are kicking off this conversation in this hour with one of our most fearless, most tireless advocates in the Congress, my Congresswoman, Representative Sydney Kamlanger Dove, representing California's 37th District. Hey, Congresswoman.
Hey, how are you doing, Adrian?
I'm sure I'm doing better than you, given where you work and what you have to deal with on a daily basis. But I sure appreciate you joining. I know that things are crazy right now. And we also have this election coming up. I think in 18 days. I said 18 days earlier, so I hope that that is correct, but on November 4th. And I wanted to talk both about, of course, what's happening in D.C., what's happening in Congress, or what's not happening in Congress. But I also wanted to spend some time talking about Prop 50. And I know that you've been doing a lot of work with your colleagues, obviously in from our delegation, but also around the state and here locally to make sure that folks are informed about Prop 50, understand the stakes. And I was hoping you could just talk to the listeners for a minute about what this means, what Prop 50 means, what we have the ability to do, what we have the opportunity to do with this proposition.
Yeah, so always happy to be on your program and talking to the listeners of KBLA. And I do think it's important to let folks know that there is a relationship between the government shutdown and Proposition 50. Mm-hmm. Proposition 50 is about making sure that we are reclaiming our power to prevent shutdowns like this from happening in the future. And we know that this shutdown is purely political, and it is because Donald Trump and the cabinet that he has put together and the leadership, quite frankly, in the Senate and Congress, really don't care about federal workers, about government services, or about Black people. Mm-hmm. So, this week, as you know, there was a very important case that was heard before the Supreme Court about redistricting. Yes. And we've been having redistricting conversations this entire year. I was there at the Supreme Court on Wednesday. I was giving Clarence Thomas some side eye, but I
hope you gave him enough for all of us.
I did, sister. I did, but I was fearful because one of the attorneys was actually arguing that the entire Voting Rights Act is illegal,
right? And
that Voting Rights Act is what we have to actually protect our right and ability to vote.
Right.
So, as you all know, Donald Trump, got a $4.5 trillion tax break to give to the richest of the rich. The Republicans in Congress passed that. In order to pay for that, he is cutting almost $1 trillion in our Medicaid, in our Medicare, and other important services. Mm-hmm. One of the reasons why the government is shut down is because he's okay with using taxpayer dollars to fund these tax breaks. Right. They thought that people would be okay with not having access to Medicare, not having ACA, having high premiums. The American people have slowly said, no, we don't want that. And we also don't like you kidnapping our neighbors and deporting citizens and all of this bad stuff. So Donald Trump said, if they don't like what's happening now, they might vote out Republicans in 2026, and then Democrats would have the gavels, and then Democrats would start investigating all this nonsense, subpoenaing, cabinet members and other people, and putting a stop to the madness. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to rig an election in Texas. I'm going to rig the maps in Texas to keep seats. Yeah. And this is why we have Proposition 50 to push back against what happened in Texas.
Well, thank you so much for making those connections, because I think that sometimes, there's so much news and information coming out, and people are, looking at the screens on their phone, they're looking at their computer screen, the TV's on, and we sometimes can lose, the connections of these things, and it is really important. When we come forward, I want to dig in a little bit deeper, both on the shutdown and also on what we need to be doing here to make sure that the vote gets turned out by November 4th. When we come forward, we'll continue our conversation with Representative Sidney Kamlager-Dove. This is KBLA Talk 1580.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
Eric was way behind on his taxes.
I owed a lot of money to the IRS, almost $15,000. I tried to make payments.
The IRS wasn't satisfied with Eric's efforts, so they came after him full force.
They're coming to put a lien and a hold on all my income, my home, my car. I was just overwhelmed at what to do.
Then Eric called Optima Tax Relief.
When Optima Tax got involved, the calls would stop, the threats would stop. It was easy like 1, 2, 3.
Optima's award-winning team of expert tax professionals took care of Eric's problem.
I owe $15,000, and now my debt is clean. I don't owe anything.
Take Eric's advice.
If you have a tax problem, you need to call Optima Tax now.
Call Optima Tax Relief for a free consultation. Call 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077.
Optima Tax Relief.
Actual client compensated for sharing their experience. Some restrictions apply. Visit OptimaTaxRelief.com for details.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. If you need help getting your resume in order, finding job training, or landing a job, we've got 3 great options for you. First, the City of Los Angeles has WorkSource centers across the area offering free job support. The California Workforce Development Board can help you with everything from GED prep to vocational training at no cost to you. On the federal level, the Department of Labor's American Job Centers offer a full range of services for job seekers and businesses alike. Visit careeronestop.org, or for more info, just call California's Help Center or visit cwdb.ca.gov or call 916-657-1440. For the City of Los Angeles programs, go to ewdd.lacity.gov or call 213-744-7300. All these services are free to help you get your next job. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah.
The
California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
Let's get back to more of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to the Black Pack, and we're continuing our conversation with Representative Sidney Kamlager-Dove, my representative in the United States Congress. And Congresswoman, will you give us just an update about where things actually stand right now with the shutdown? What is happening right now that people should know about?
Well, people should know that it is day 19 of a government shutdown that was totally preventable. Republicans wanted Democrats to support this clean bill, which is actually really dirty because it's a continuation of a double down on all of these cuts.
Right.
And so as a result, they want, we're going to be getting letters, right, from our insurance coverage telling us that premiums might go up, double, triple, even quadruple. You're going to see hospitals shut down. You're going to see folks not being able to access their services. We've also just seen Donald Trump try to fire federal workers during the shutdown. There are 4,000 federal workers in your district, in my district. Luckily, we took him to court.
Wow.
And the judge said, no, he can't do that. But this shutdown is about health care. They don't want us to have it, and the health care they want us to have, they want it to be more expensive. And we're saying no.
And they have no plan around it. It really is, I try not to watch Mike Johnson's press conferences, but it really is, kind of the doublespeak, the kind of propaganda around, we want to give you health care. We want to fund those things that the Democrats are saying that they care about. But to your point, I think I think it's important that folks, understand that the point that you just made, which is the bill that they're trying to pass is the bill with all the cuts in it. It's not like they're adding more money, right?
Well, A, they don't have a plan, to your point. Right. B, they lie. They've lied in the past. They're lying now. They're saying if you open the government, we promise that we'll negotiate with you about health care, even though we can't promise that we'll have the votes. You even have Marjorie Taylor Greene saying that premiums are going to go up and this is a bad thing. Also included in this bill is $500 million in cuts to the CDC and $500 million in cuts to the National Institute of Health. So they don't want you to have health care that you can afford, and they want to cut research and grant opportunities where you have doctors and scientists trying to research cures for all of the diseases that ail us. So they don't want, and 3/4 of all of the ACA Medicaid enrollees are actually in red states that Donald Trump won. So it's not just about punishing Democrats, it's about punishing everybody. And we're standing up and we're saying, hell no.
Well, and you're standing up for their constituents as well. I mean, I was thinking the other day when, as all this was going down, and both the what we're seeing with the, the healthcare crisis, right, and in an even greater crisis, right, looming, but also what's happening with the farmers, right, and it reminds me of we know that Donald Trump can't help but tell us every single thing that he's planning to do, right? He always does. He says, I'm going to do this, and I'm struck by the thing, he continues to say, there's going to be a little bit of pain, right? People are going to feel pain, and my people are going to feel pain, and it's sort of like signaling, right? Like you're going to go through it, but if you believe in all the other terrible things that I'm doing, then you'll stick with me. right? That feels, because that is, you all are fighting for their constituents, the people who live in those red states who are also going to suffer because of not just the spending bill and the cuts, but exactly what you said in terms of what we're seeing at Health and Human Services right now.
I think most people are willing to endure some pain if you know that the cause is good and righteous. But he is a punisher. He is not a president.
Right.
And so the pain that he is exacting on all of us is really just for his benefit.
Right.
Why would you give $20 billion to Argentina instead of giving it to farmers who need it, right?
Right.
Why would you have a government shutdown and then use it to fire employees based on your 2025 plan that said you want to fire employees?
Right.
Why are you making air traffic controllers and TSA agents work for free? Why have you tried to dismantle the Department of Education?
Right.
Why are you going after union employees and trying to get rid of collective bargaining?
Right.
All of that, why are you leveling arbitrary tariffs on other countries, which only go back to make the costs of the American consumer go up?
Right.
All of this pain is not for the benefit of the United States.
Right. That's right. And I think that there's all of this is happening, right? And we also have people across the country doing what they can to push back against this. And I talked in the last hour with my guest about the No King's Marches that are happening tomorrow. But to your earlier point, Proposition 50 is a part of that resistance as well, right? It is an effort to say you can't just rig elections forever. You can't just, you called into Georgia in 2020, right, and demanded that they find you 11,000 votes. And they, to their credit, said, no, that's not how this works. But then you called into Texas this year and said, find me 5 more House seats, right, so that we can extend our lead. And the governor of Texas said, when do you want it? How quickly can I get them to you? And so Prop 50 really is an effort to say, this is not how we do political representation. This is not how we draw. This is not how we, there should not be mid-decade redrawing of lines. But we will have to counter if other states are going to try and undermine democracy in this way. And I think my sense, I know you've done some polling, we've done some polling. My sense is that people get that. Right. They understand that and are prepared to push back. Is that what you're getting when you're talking with constituents and with your colleagues, what they're hearing from their constituents, that people understand?
Absolutely. I think for most of this year, we've heard from constituents that Democrats need to fight, that we need to start fighting against Donald Trump. And I know that in the Congress, that's what we're trying to do. This is the United States, and so I have to ride with my set. The other 49 states, right, in the District of Columbia and territories that are part of the United States. Donald Trump, actually with the National Republican Redistricting Trust, redrew those lines in Texas that get rid of black and brown seats. It even pits Republican incumbents against one another.
Right.
That's how you know it's not even for their party, it's just for Trump. California said, well, we have to fight back. We have to fight back against these attacks against the black community, DEI, against our history, our museum, 300,000 black women losing their jobs in 3 months. We have to fight back. And we have to fight fire with fire using these redistricting tools to try to neutralize the chaos that is coming out of Texas and coming out of the White House. So we did this. It is temporary. It will go back to the Independent Redistricting Commission in 2030. It has been fair. We are abiding by the Voting Rights Act, unlike what has happened in Texas.
Right.
And it is democratic. The legislature had to vote on this before the governor signed it.
Yep.
And when people are voting, when you get your ballots, there is a map of the entire state and the new lines in it for you to see. That is the first time in the history of this country that voters are able to look at maps. Fair, democratic, and temporary, to fight against what's happening in Texas and also to fight against what might be coming up in other states so that we can have as fair an election as possible come 2026. But, Adrianne, They're having these conversations in Florida, in Indiana, in Ohio. They did it in Missouri. It's happening in Texas. They're trying to have these conversations in North Carolina and in Kansas.
Right.
And even Republicans are saying this is bad. The other thing that is incredibly pernicious is the administration is saying, get rid of the black seats. Get rid of the seats that are held by congressional black caucus members.
Yes.
So there's a layer of racism on top of this voter suppression that you're seeing. That's why Prop 50 is so important, why I'm voting yes, and I think others should too.
Yeah, I think that that's one of the things too that it's so important that people remember or recognize or pay attention to is that when these lines are being redrawn in other states to get more Republican seats, the seats that are being eliminated are members of the Congressional Black Caucus, right? They are taking out, they're attempting to take out in all of these conversations in these states, they're attempting to remove the seats that have been held by black folks. And that is this, again, this idea that our voting rights are under attack. You talked about the Supreme Court case. We're going to be talking to one of our favorite lawyers in just a little bit about that case. But we see that our voting rights are under attack, and our political representation, our ability to choose the people that we want to represent us, is also under attack.
It's crazy. And there's the census, there's redistricting, there's your ability to vote. There's representation. So the census happens every, getting communities the resources, the federal resources that you need. If you need hospitals, if you need schools, if you need churches, if you need more roads, that's where you're getting the money. I have a colleague in Alabama, Terry Sewell. She asks for money all the time, but because it comes through the governor and the governor doesn't like the black folks in Alabama, he takes the money for her district and he gives it to other places. So Prop 50 is about saying no to that. And while we don't have to deal with some of that here in California, we do have an obligation to ride for our set in these other states where that is happening, because we know they're trying to take away our health care. They're trying to fire us from our jobs. They're trying to keep the resources that we are due, lawfully, and keep it and give it to their own folks and put it in their own coffers. And a lot of voters are saying enough is enough. The polling has come out. And when people understand the stakes, they say, yeah, we have to fight back. It's a moral defense for black folks, and it's a strategic offense to actually use these tools that they're using against us to fight back.
And how? So, if you're talking to your constituents and other black voters here in Los Angeles and around the state, what are you saying to people? Here is what you need to do, right? Because we know that people need to fill out their ballots, and I keep saying, what you waiting on, right? But what more can people be doing to make sure that the vote gets turned out?
I think we have to talk about it. We have to remind folks that there's only one thing on the ballot, and it doesn't seem really sexy, but it's incredibly important. And if you are turning off the news because it sickens your stomach every single day, the antidote, the Tums, the mint tea that you can take is vote yes on Prop 50. That is how we fight back. He's very upset that California is doing this. He thought we would send out a press release and him and I go on about our business. But we are saying we can find 5 seats. We can help fight to make sure that elections in 2026 are as fair as possible. So if you don't want your health care cut, if you want to call and make sure that you're going to have your Social Security check, if you want to make sure that you're going to have access to your veteran benefits, if you want to make sure that you can call the Small Business Association and get your loan, if you want to make sure that when you send your child to school, they're going to have the resources that they need, if you want to make sure that you don't have to bring your papers with you when you go to church or your job or to buy some soda at the store because you don't want to get snatched up on ICE, you need to vote yes on Prop 50, because believe it or not, that is the fight. That is the defense against all of those things that have been happening, because if we can win in 26, then they'll stop happening.
Right. And I think that these off-year elections, although there's never really an off year, right? These off-year elections, sometimes we know that folks don't participate in them as robustly as they do in a presidential election. And I think that one of the things what you're saying, and in a very compelling way, is that we need to treat this election like it is a presidential election in terms of our participation. And so, when we think about what we do in an on-year, in a presidential election, we make sure that the people in our churches have the information that they need. We call our family members and say, did you get your ballot? Did you turn it in? Right? Like, we do all of those things. And so I do feel like it's important, and I know you do too, right, to make sure that we're not treating this as an election that's sort of like, well, maybe I'll participate. I don't know if I'll participate. That we don't treat it in that way.
Correct. And oftentimes you say, well, what's in it for me? Well, what am I going to get? Well, all of these things that you're seeing on television and reading about in the paper that make your stomach churn, you're going to get an opportunity to stop those things. Right. I don't know about you, Adrianne, but, I'm a caregiver for my dad, and he's on Medicare, and the thought of that going away scares me to death. Yeah. When I think about the federal workers, like the folks who deliver your mail or make sure you can get your passport or keep you safe when you travel, make sure the planes don't drop out. Right. The people who are inspecting the food that you buy at the grocery store to make sure that they don't have diseases in them. Right. You want all of those things to continue. Right. How many of our neighbors and friends, work for the federal government or have a contract with the federal government and are scared? Right. I want to stop all of that fear and pain, and I can do that if I'm voting yes on Prop 50. And then continue to stay engaged, Adrianne. Yeah,
that's right. Yep. Well, I think that's right. And people can do it, vote because you need to, because we need to, but also to help your neighbors. I think that's a really great way to think about it. I appreciate you so much for taking time out. I know everything is hectic, and we have asked you to take some of your time. And so I appreciate you coming on and talking about this. And, we'll continue to make sure that we get the word out, right, about this proposition, important folks voting, and hopefully you'll come back and give us some updates on the shutdown and hoping, fingers crossed, that it actually comes to an end soon for all the people that are going to be affected. Appreciate all your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and hopefully I'll see you tomorrow at a No Kings Parade.
Yeah, see you at a No Kings Parade. That's right. On the other side, we're going to be joined by Madiba Denny, Deputy Director and Senior Contributor at Balls and Strikes, to talk about the Supreme Court. Stay with us.
More of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. A federal appeals court has blocked the Trump administration's attempt to deploy the National Guard in Illinois. Chicago officials, including Black Mayor Brandon Johnson, previously called the move illegal and unconstitutional.
Donald Trump declared war on Chicago. That's what he did.
The court upheld a restraining order rejecting claims that troops were needed to curb crime or protect immigration facilities. The FBI is investigating Black Charlotte, North Carolina businessman Cedric Dean for allegedly billing Medicaid millions for fake mental health services. Agents have seized his bank accounts, cars, and properties tied to the scheme, though officials have not shared more details. And NBC News has laid off staff from its diversity verticals, NBC Black, NBC Asian America, NBC Latino, and NBC Out, cutting about 7% of its newsroom. Around 5 staffers will continue contributing to those beats as NBC restructures. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Tough in Burbank, South 5 from Buena Vista all the way to the 605. But Santa Monica, East 10 jamming up at 20th Street to the 5 in Boyle Heights. It's also tough as you roll out of Agora Hills 101 southbound from before Liberty Canyon all the way into downtown Los Angeles. And surface streets in the area of Dodger Stadium absolutely jam-packed as well as people funnel in for tonight's Game 4. We're heading out to the 2, southbound slowing, getting away from Verdugo Road to the 5.
Do you really know what's in your tap water? We believe your water should support your health, not work against it. Upgrade your home with a LifeSource whole house system. Clean water from every tap, no salt, no hassle. Call 1-800-WATER-99 or visit lifesourcewater.com.
Warranty limitations apply.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The odds are not in the Milwaukee Brewers' favor in their attempt to come back from an 0-3 deficit against the Dodgers. Only one team in the 122-year history of Major League Baseball has battled back from 0-3 to win a postseason series. The Boston Red Sox did it in 2004 when they caught up with the Yankees and beat them in Game 7 to win the American League Championship. A win for the Dodgers tonight in Game 4 will make them the first defending champion to return to the World Series since Philadelphia in 2009. UCLA's football team is 2-4, but they are 2-1 in the Big Ten Conference. The Bruins are at home Saturday against Maryland. A win for the resurgent Bruins keeps them in contention for the Big Ten title. 4 p.m. kickoff at the Rose Bowl. USC is at Notre Dame Saturday. The 5-1 Trojans need a win to stay in contention for the 12-team college football playoffs. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Tavis Smiley with a final word here about the upcoming Left Coast Forum on Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech. As you know by now, our major keynoters include Professor Richard Wolff and Dr. Cornel West. LA Mayor Karen Bass will be there as well. But listen to some of these plenaries: fighting for black students and educational equity, resilience under Trumpism, how to stay sane under fascism, the battle for democracy, what's at stake in 2026, healthcare under attack, fighting Trump's cuts, and building patient power from seed to system, building a local food economy in South LA, theater as a force for change, voices from Palestine. The Constitution is not self-reinforcing, racism on the left, building communities of care, federal changes and their impact on healthcare in LA County, Committee for the First Amendment, and more. The Left Coast Forum is brought to you by the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Partnership for Growth LA, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, LA Care Health Plan, United Teachers Los Angeles, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and more. Space is limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. That's KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters, your presence matters. We'll see you there.
Open enrollment is your opportunity to choose a plan that connects you to Providence's comprehensive healthcare network. Choose a plan that includes Providence and gain access to a dedicated team of highly trained primary care physicians and specialists. From nationally recognized doctors and hospitals, Providence ensures quality care is always within reach. When you choose Providence, you choose after-hours care through our nurse advice line, urgent care, or virtual express care. You choose 24/7 access through the Providence mobile app to message providers, request prescription refills, schedule appointments, check lab results, and more. This open enrollment, prioritize your well-being with the peace of mind that comes from choosing a provider that values excellence and compassionate care. Don't just choose a plan. Choose a plan dedicated to health equity and community engagement. Choose a plan that believes health is a human right. Choose a plan that delivers exceptional care and cares about your community. Choose a plan that offers Providence. Visit chooseprovidence.org to learn more.
You're inside the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are inside the Black Pack. I am Adrianne Shropshire, and I am joined by our favorite legal mind, Madiba Denny, deputy editor and senior contributor at Balls and Strikes and author of The Originalism Trap. The Supreme Court, for folks who are paying attention, took up or had arguments this week on a case that could, I'm going to say the words, Madiba, you tell me, like, completely gut what is left of the Voting Rights Act. It is a case out of Louisiana that, folks are deeply concerned about what it will mean, what the justice's ruling will mean. Welcome, Madiba. I always appreciate you. These are always heavy conversations. We always say that someday, right? Like, we will have something to talk about that is not like one more right gone. But talk to me. Can you give
We'll
me,
get there.
We will get there. We will absolutely get there. Can you talk to us? Give the listeners just a little bit of background on Louisiana versus, is it Calais?
Calais, yeah. That's also something I didn't know until this week, until hearing oral argument, because I was like, I'm just going to pronounce this any old way. But yeah, so now I can officially say that it's Louisiana versus Calais that is basically, as you said, threatening to gut what's left of the Voting Rights Act.
Right.
The Voting Rights Act was the transformative, historic 1965 law that really, for the first time, effectuated a lot of the Constitution's promises about Black folks being able to vote. And so the conservative legal movement has been chipping away at a lot of it over time because they didn't especially care for multiracial democracy. And one of the last legs standing, this part, Section 2, it basically says, if there's any practice or any law or policy that a government enacts that it abridges or denies people's right to vote on account of their race, then it's unlawful. Simple as. But here we had in Louisiana, the Republican lawmakers enacted this new map, a congressional map for districting, and the 2020 census showed that the Black population in Louisiana was growing, reaching about a third of the population. Louisiana, however, did not adjust its maps to account for that growing population. They crammed all of the Black population into just one of the state's 6 districts and cracked them amongst the 5 others. So even though they were about 30% or so of the population, they would only be able to get 16-ish% of the seats in Congress. So Black voters in Louisiana sued over this, and they won because it was discriminatory. It did abridge their right to vote on account of their race. And so Louisiana created a new map. And now here's where things get really interesting. A group of self-described non-African American voters then sued over that new map and said that fixing the prior racist map was the real racism, basically, saying that it is discriminatory to remedy discrimination. And
say that one more time, please, for the people in the back. It is discriminatory
to remedy discrimination.
To remedy discrimination. It is the upside down.
It's the upside down. It doesn't make sense, plain and simple, as a logical matter, and it also really just inverts what the Reconstruction Amendments were supposed to do. Right. These amendments exist to expand the franchise, include people who have been excluded from the political process, make a multiracial democracy actually work. And here you see those very same concepts being twisted, saying actually, as you were making that new map to make sure that Black voters in Louisiana had that 2nd district in which they were a majority, by taking race into account, you were discriminating on the basis of race. It's unfair. That's illegal. So, should this idea be embraced, and it seems very likely that it's going to be, that some version of that idea is going to be embraced. They haven't, the justices seem to be batting around what precise version of it they'll go with, but they didn't really leave any doubt as to the Voting Rights Act is going down. And so,
talk a little bit about just a little bit about the arguments the other day, because the liberal justice, I did listen in on a little bit, and I stopped. And I stopped because I'll tell you why I stopped. I stopped because I thought the conservative justices are arguing this case from the bench. They are doing the work of the lawyers from the bench. They are teeing up arguments for the lawyers, and the lawyers, I think I was listening to, I don't know if it was listening to Kagan or Sotomayor, when the lawyer for the state kept saying, well, as Justice Alito said, or, Justice Kavanaugh said, right? He was just, it was outrageous, and so I turned it off. But talk a little bit about where the justices were coming down around this case.
Yeah, and that's pretty representative as well. A few days back, there was another case, somewhat related to voting, and Justice Alito outright said to the lawyer, he was like, "I think you didn't make all the arguments you should have been making. Like why didn't you?" He says, "Why didn't you argue that this?" And I was like, "Wow, okay." So that's where we are. So yeah, there was a range of different types of arguments that the justices were batting around for what the precise rationale will be. We have Justice Alito's sort of favorite version is that it's not race-based discrimination that the state was doing. They were discriminating based on party.
Right.
And it just so happens that Black people vote for Democrats in overwhelming numbers. But you can't then just say that it's racial instead of partisan.
Right.
And the court has said a couple years ago, the court said that partisan gerrymandering is okay. So basically, this Alito was trying to go with this racism rebrand. Just call it partisan, and it's okay.
Right.
That shouldn't matter under the Voting Rights Act itself or under the Constitution. The idea of, well, we were doing it for this reason doesn't actually feature in the text of the Voting Rights Act or in the text of the Constitution. In fact, the text of the Voting Rights Act says the opposite. It explicitly says it's concerned about outcomes, about effects. They figured it would be too hard, and most people have too much sense to not outright say I'm doing a racism,
right.
And so they didn't want to put the burden on people to find like impossible evidence of like outright intentional, we got them now, we have the X-ray to show their racist bones,
right.
And so they were like, okay, what matters here is the results, that it ends up discriminating against Black voters in the case of Louisiana, but voters on account of their race.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit more about, because I also think that the liberal justices were, they were great, but they were also just like, what are you talking about? Right? They were so sort of matter of fact. So on the other side, I want to continue that conversation, because the conservative justices were just, in fact, they were very quiet. Well, I'm starting the conversation, so let me stop. And we are going to continue this conversation with Madiba Denny. Stay with us.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
Donald Trump has all but declared war on California, sending in a National Guard, blocking disaster relief, and cutting funds to our colleges. And now, he and Texas Republicans are trying to rig the next election by stealing congressional seats from Black voters in states like Texas.
They want to rig these elections, and they want the power that gerrymandering provides.
Seriously, look it up. But Prop 50 is how we fight back. It gives Californians the power to fight fire with fire and beat Trump at his own game. Prop 50 creates temporary emergency congressional maps that level the playing field and protect the power of Black votes. Not just in California, but across the country. Your vote matters, and the whole country is counting on California to lead. So use your vote to protect our power, our history, and our future. Vote yes on Prop 50 by November 4. Ad paid for by Yes on 50, the Election Rigging Response Act, Governor Newsom's Ballot Measure Committee, Ad Committee's top funders, HMP for Prop 50, and Fund for Policy Reform.
You're still glowing, flirting, grooving. You still got it. But your immune system weakens as you age, making it harder to fight flu, pneumococcal pneumonia, RSV, and COVID-19. Vaccines are a key part of any health routine and help strengthen your immune response. Ask your doctor or pharmacist which vaccines you need. Schedule in minutes at vaxassist.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
As a mom, comforting my family is what I do best. Vicks Vapor Stick provides soothing, non-medicated Vicks Vapors in an easy-to-apply stick, and it dries fast, so there's no mess. I use it to comfort myself and my family.
Thanks, Mom.
Vicks Vapo Stick, soothing comfort for the whole family. And try Vicks Vapo Shower Max for steamy Vicks Vapors when you need more comfort for yourself. Use as directed.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Los Angeles Regional Food Bank is on a mission to fight hunger and provide nutritious food to those in need across our community. They partner with federal, state, and local programs advocating for better policies and funding for critical hunger relief programs like Cow Fresh, the Emergency Food Assistance Program, and the Child and Adult Care Food Program. The food bank works with coalitions and local representatives to make sure hunger is addressed in every district of LA County. They also run nutrition education campaigns, raise hunger awareness, and source nutritious food for distribution, all while supporting regulations that allow food pantries to operate safely. Want to help? Visit lafoodbank.org or call 323-234-3030 to volunteer or find a food bank near you. Together, we can ensure that no one goes hungry in Los Angeles County. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Let's get back to more of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
We are continuing our conversation with Madiba Denny, Deputy Editor and Senior Contributor at Balls and Strikes, and author of The Originalism Trap. So, Madiba, we were talking about the responses of the justices around this case, Louisiana versus Calais, which is the case that will completely gut the Voting Rights Act by taking out the last remaining piece, right? And so I wanted to talk about the liberal justices. I don't think there's anything more to say. I started to talk more right before we cut about the conservative justices who have essentially bought into, the bringing back the, once again, like the old hits of it's reverse racism, right? Anything that black people have that white people don't want them to have means that it's racism against white people.
That's a problem. Yeah.
Right. And that's really where we are. It's like black people can't have those things. Jobs, nope. Right? Like voting rights, nope.
Yeah.
Representation in Congress, nope. But talk a little bit about the liberal justices, because they were all deeply engaged, right, around this, even though, Alito and Kavanaugh talked a lot, I think. But there was also a lot of silence on the part of the conservatives, because it just seems like they've decided they know what they're going to do, and there was nothing to say.
They know what they're going to do. Yeah.
Right. But
I felt like Justice Gorsuch was, mostly quiet, not entirely, but mostly quiet. And it seemed like, Justice Alito was aggressive as always, but some of the Republican justices just didn't have much to say because they kind of know how this was going already. But the Democratic appointees used their time to try basically spotlight the actual facts and the actual law. Since none of those were really parts of what the Republican justices were talking about. Like something I thought that Justice Jackson said that was important and goes along with what you were saying about, we're acting like anytime there's anything done for black people, there's a problem. And because the attorney for these aggrieved white folks was saying something to the effect of, they want another majority-minority district, like they think they're supposed to have one, but and Justice Jackson was like, that's not actually what they said. What they said was that they were being discriminated against and that they want an equally open electoral process as they are entitled to under the Constitution and under the Voting Rights Act. They're like, that's something different. Right. They are not asking for any favors. They're asking for law. They're asking for equality. And I thought, Justice Kagan, she had a helpful question as well in thinking about actual facts, saying, what would happen without this? What are the consequences of gutting the Voting Rights Act further? And the answer that Janae Nelson gave, she was the oral advocate there and the president of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. She said it would be catastrophic. And, just looking at Louisiana alone, the black Congress members that Louisiana does have were elected because of the Voting Rights Act.
And so this is the crux here, right? Which I think is really let's talk about that for a moment, because almost all of the South, would dare say, right, the districts were drawn because black people were being discriminated against, and that is how we got black members of Congress. If this goes down, how does Congress change? How does representation for black people in this country in the United States Congress change because of this. I'm not even say potential ruling because I think we know what they're going to do.
Right. Yeah. There will likely be pretty dramatic shifts. There was a report that came out recently by a couple of groups. It was like Fair Fight Action was one of them, and there's like another voting rights group involved. And they basically said that if this goes through, they think that around 30% of the Congressional Black Caucus, their seats are jeopardized. I think it was around 15% for members of the Hispanic caucus, because, yeah, they were, drawn from districts that were, elected out of districts that were redrawn to make sure that the people of color in those states actually had a shot at making their voices heard.
Right.
And so without that, if the states now feel free and empowered to draw some extra egregious racial gerrymanders, it's not clear what, if anything, they'll be able to do about it. So It could just be, reverting back to the pre-Voting Rights Act conditions of just having a government buy-in for white people.
Right. This is what's at stake. I mean, I think that, sometimes it is. We hear the cases and we know that it's bad and that it's gonna, affect voting rights or whatever the issue is, LGBTQ issues, women's rights. But this is the thing that this one in particular just makes it really, really stark what is happening. We're talking with Congresswoman Kamala Gardev earlier, and she was sort of connecting the dots on why the government shutdown is connected to this effort to pass Prop 50 in the state, right? And so there are some things that, it's important for us to sort of connect these dots because essentially they're going to rule how they're going to rule. And I think, I don't remember if it was Elie Mystal or someone was essentially saying that one of the things that the court could do is, essentially, and you tell me I have no idea and I may be getting this wrong, essentially let Section 2 stand, but it can't do anything. Right? There's no way for it to actually affect or impact anything because they've gutted it.
And that's what they did in Shelby County versus Holder. They didn't actually say that Section 5, which was the pre-clearance regime, or states and that had a history of passing discriminatory laws, had to go to the federal government and show them any potential changes first. They didn't strike that down, but what they struck down was the formula for deciding what states are covered. And so without a coverage formula, there's no coverage. So it just made it inoperable, even without formally striking it down. And that's kind of a Chief Justice John Roberts classic. He loves to do the kind of overruling without saying so.
Right.
And so it's definitely possible that they would do something like that here in saying, Section 2 can still stand, but the possible remedy of deliberately creating a new district where people of color are a majority, that part is illegal.
Right.
So it's very possible that that's the way it could go.
And this is sort of John Roberts' legacy, right? I mean, I think his taking out the Voting Rights Act has been his focus his entire legal career, right? Yeah, it's like his life's work is to stop Black people from voting and apparently stopping Black people from having representation in the United States Congress, and that's what this case represents. And so I think people should keep this in mind. How the fact that this is very kind of directly taking us back to your point, so sort of pre-voting rights, even pre-Civil Rights Act moment that we're in right now. And so think about that while you're trying to decide whether or not you're going to a No King's March or not. If you're going to show some resistance this weekend, you should have in the back of your mind that the court is about to take us back to Reconstruction, or after Reconstruction, or before Reconstruction, who knows. Let me ask you about one other thing quickly before we have to close out the show, and that is that the court said today that they're also going to take up the Trump, the case where Trump, I'm going to mess this up, but you will clean it up for me. Trump sending federal troops into states. The Supreme Court said that they would take that case up and decide whether or not he had the authority to do that. Talk about what's at stake with that.
Yeah. I mean, we've already had in so many cases the Supreme Court sort of intervening to dramatically expand presidential powers. But this would be a deeply, deeply disturbing one because, again, it's just like so extreme. You have like the use of deploying the military against American people. You have, telling bald-faced lies about why, because they're saying, oh, well, there's a rebellion, there's an insurrection, so we have to use this. And it's like people can use their eyes and see that folks are not doing any of that. Right. So it's just sort of inventing emergencies to use an emergency power. And so that would be pretty monumental. Yeah. It would be, you mentioned no kings. It would be harder to say that this is like not kingly powers because it would be saying that the president can basically do whatever he wants.
Right. Yeah, this is real serious stuff. And I hope that people are tracking this. And I appreciate you coming on, Madiba, as always, and breaking this down because it is actual madness. And I think that it's important that we are clear about what's happening. So I want to thank you for joining. And also thank you all for joining me on the Black Pack. Tomorrow is No Kings Day. We don't do kings in this country since 1776. It's not a thing, but we have a man in the White House who believes that he ought to be able to be king. And so go out, raise your voice, let them know, join the millions of other Americans that will be out, let them know that no kings on our watch. We'll be back next Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Enjoy your weekend. Adam March.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. New York City is launching a new NYPD domestic violence unit to address rising cases. Black Mayor Eric Adams says the unit will improve investigations, officer training, and survivor support.
Domestic violence, gender-based violence continues to cause pain in our society.
About 450 investigators will focus solely on domestic violence, which has risen 41% since 2020. Black Memphis, Tennessee Mayor Paul Young says the federal presence in the city may end soon, about a month after arriving. Around 700 federal agents and 150 National Guard members joined the Memphis Safe Task Force, which has made 978 arrests and seized 197 guns. And rapper NBA YoungBoy